From New York, New York, you are listening to Extra Time, presented by AT&T 5G. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, Matt Doyle, Kalen Carr, David Goss. Say goodbye to the 2022 regular season. What are we eating here? We had an instant crackle.
Rainbow worms. I was cheersing Kalen's coffee.
I was just like, this is the epitome of professionalism that you've come to expect from Extra Time.
Crumpling up a paper or something to signify that the regular season
it was
is
like
done,
some sort of stupid bit that I would do.
Yeah, David needed his candy, though.
But it was the gummy worms. You've been on the road, Dave. We can forgive this, right? Like, you came home with a jersey from Orlando, or they
I didn't actually. They mailed it to me. It arrived Friday evening, and then I went to Orlando on Saturday. So could have saved the postage, but I appreciate it. Look at I can't do sides. Look at the special crest.
If Columbus won, would you be rocking a crew kit if they won?
Kalen, I'm a man of all people. I'm a man of the fans, and the fans are what matter to me.
I am like a chameleon. I'm whoever I need to be on any given day.
I think
Purple, yellow.
He sweat through the rest in Orlando. He said,
exactly.
It's hard to sweat through the purple. Yeah,
I'm just MLS for RSL. That's the identity I still live with.
Hey, RSL are into the Audi 2022 MLS Cup Playoffs. Look at that segue there. Decision day. What a day. 2 rounds of games. You know how it goes. Eastern Conference first, Western Conference afterwards. Thank you to everybody who joined us for, what was it, Kalen? 6 hours straight on YouTube Live and Twitch.
Just reheated this coffee. We're back at it, man.
Hey, we'll reheat the takes as well. See if we can remember what we said yesterday. It was a really good time. The chat was flying. It was awesome.
Is that an adult bedroom or a childhood bedroom with your little soccer ball and trophies?
That's
Kalen's back home. He's back in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Are you?
No, I'm back in Berkeley. I'm back in Berkeley.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's not just a soccer ball.
Okay.
It's an MLS ball.
Is it autographed by Ronald Cerritos?
No,
I'm thinking like early Quakes.
Yeah, that was
Troy. It's a little too late. That ball's
Troy
a little late.
Dyack?
That's a Jabulani, I think, right there.
Yeah. I hope nobody zooms in.
Is that a Kalen Carr MLS Cup final goal?
No, I think it might be my first MLS goal. So there's probably some indecent hand scribble written on there. So don't zoom in if you're watching on YouTube.
Wilman Conde wrote whatever he wanted on that.
Oh man, that's actually that would not be good.
What did Zach? What did Zach Thornton write on there? Like, try to hang, young man. I don't know. Anyway, Decision Day is in the books. Today we will dig into Decision Day and then leave the 2022 regular season in the dust because we're headed to the playoffs. Crown an MLS Cup champion in 2022. The bracket is set. Go to MLSsoccer.com, the MLS app. The Audi Bracket Challenge is open. It is ready for you. You can put your picks in. We will talk about ours here in just a little bit. There's prizes up for grabs. As always, most importantly, you can change your picks, I believe, all the way up until game time. Don't hold me to it, but that's generally what I do. Just kind of go on the vibes. And whatever I'm feeling in the moment, that's what I'm going to pick right before the game starts. So call your shot. What's your final? Who's your champion? Win some prizes. MLSsoccer.com and the MLS app, the Audi Bracket Challenge. Before we dive into Decision Day, before we go through the bracket, talk about our best first-round matchups, the possible dark horses that we have out there, and look ahead to LAFC and Philly, who've got a decently long break here that might affect them. We saw it affect the Revs last year. Nikolai hit us up via email, and this is the start to the show, and just a little catnip for us that are looking ahead and maybe filling out our bracket challenges. Nikolai says, odds are pretty high for a first-time champion. The Galaxy, Real Salt Lake, New York City FC are the only teams of the 14 to have won MLS Cup before. And he says, obviously, the first time since 2014 that Cascadia doesn't represent the West in MLS Cup as well. So change is afoot. Maybe. Depending. Galaxy, RSL, NYCFC, hoping not. But let's jump into it. Best thing you saw on Decision Day. Let's start with you, Doyle.
14 saves from Joe Willis. Like it's fun to pick apart LAFC because they felt invincible 2 months ago and they don't feel invincible any longer. But like it took Joe Willis putting up a Tim Howard against Belgium style performance to keep that shutout yesterday. He was spectacular. Like two guys, Daniel Gazdag and Brenner, had a hat trick and an assist. And neither of them was the best player on the field in MLS yesterday. It was Joe Willis. He was spectacular. So, shout out to the goalkeeper union.
He did them a solid by being like, "Oh, Chicho, really? You're going to try and embarrass me on a penalty kick run up? I'm going to go down to one knee, put out a single hand, and make you look like the idiot."
Yeah, that was
that one was for all the goalkeepers.
What are we doing, Chicho, with the high jump and the hop? Because like if the goalkeeper doesn't move,
honestly, I think he like lacks confidence. So I think we've seen it from Josef in the past, where when he used to go into a slump. This is back when Josef was still Josef. He would go into a slump and he would take PKs in really weird the same way. And the one I remember is the one against Toronto in the 2019 playoffs, and it was the same thing. He took that crow hop, and you're like, oh God, he doesn't think he's going to make it. And it got saved. So I think that's the story with Chicho. Like, I think he's lost his confidence.
How can that be what you go to when you don't have confidence? Of like basically like painting yourself into a corner, jumping high in the air. You have to land on one foot and then kick it. And the goalkeeper's like, cool, this dude's jumping into the air before he shoots. He's not going to have the power to beat me. I'm literally going to stand here. Like,
I mean, you're just hoping the other guy screws up, right? And that you get the break, and then that will give you your confidence back. That's my guess.
It's a game of chicken. You're jumping to see who moves first and elongating the time. But don't play chicken with Joe Willis. That dude is like got a beard. Like he's not moving. That dude is not going to blink.
I like chicken. What's your top thing on decision day? David, you were in Orlando, obviously, so you feel free to stick in Orlando if you'd like, or you could spread the love around.
Listen, great decision day, but I met in person for the first time ever one of the best center midfielders in Major League Soccer. In the Bear, Junior Urso. I got to see the celebration right in front of me after his goal, and then we got to chat after the game, and he was delightful. So obviously the best thing I saw on decision day was Junior Urso. João Paulo did not play that great, and that's out there for Anders, but Junior Urso at least is going into the playoffs, and he carried his team there. So shout out to the Bear.
I just looked up Bear in Portuguese, and unsurprisingly, it is Urso. So now the more you know.
I didn't know that.
I didn't actually know that until now.
It comes out of the Latin root for Bear.
Oh yeah, got it. Yeah, I should have known with
Ursa Major.
Yeah, with Oso, etc.
He turned like a true striker. Mm-hmm. Like the way he turned there was, I mean, Mensah didn't do himself any favors, but I mean, man, great turn, nice little finish. He was inspired for you guys.
Yeah. As Caleb said, that goal seemed to come out of nowhere, and that was the turning point. By the way, we haven't the big news here. It's not confirmed by the crew itself, but Sam and Paul both rumoring and reporting that Caleb Porter is no longer the head coach of the Columbus Crew. The Columbus Dispatch also reporting that. Tom Bogert reporting that. So I think we can naturally conclude that Caleb Porter's time with Columbus.
It's official over. Now. It's gone out. Yeah, I haven't seen the email yet, but it went out on Twitter from the official Crew handle. So yeah, Columbus quote parts ways with head coach Caleb Porter.
All right. Well, we will dig into that a whole bunch here in just a little bit. Before that, though, Kalen, I hate you, Anders. I almost said it. I almost said Caleb insteed of Kalen. Don't do that to me in the rundown, Anders. What's the best thing you saw on decision day?
Yeah, what's up with these the comment section in YouTube was auto-correcting the whole day. But the best thing I saw was Montreal, but I'm going to go even more specific to Kai Kamara, who continues his campaign towards the Comeback Player of the Year award, which I will continue my campaign on behalf of him. But yeah, I mean, nice goal. Got just kind of slalomed right through. Was able to turn and go right at Inter Miami, who did not look themselves in this match. But credit to Montreal for putting it away. And I think for Kai now, 9 goals and 7 assists on the season. So if you want to make a statistical argument for this award, I can't see anybody on that list with better stats. If you want to go with just the sort of spirit of the award of like coming back to MLS, I made the case last week. I think that one's pretty strong. And then the other cool part of it too was there was his celebration. He pulled off his shoe, and we were like, "Is he getting his shoe off?" And then he was like on the phone. I was like, "It can't be a call up because he retired from international football after AFCON." So it's like it's definitely not that. And it turned out I saw on Instagram this morning that it was something he did. His kids have the same shoe. And both scored goals over the weekend. So Kendrick had a goal, Kieran had a goal, and then Kai had a goal. His youngest son is named Kalen, believe it or not, spelled with a K, like they're all Ks. I don't know if Kalen got a goal, but I need to have a word with Kai to see if that actually did happen. But yeah, capped off an awesome, I think, 27 pass sequence from which, really lulled Inter Miami to sleep. They went to full to sleep on that one. But Kai looked like, 21-year-old Kai going through the back line and nice finish as well. So that was the best thing I saw.
Kalen, is Kai has he mentioned to you how let down he was that you didn't start ETR episodes with his Finland goals when he was in Finland? Because now he's back in MLS and you're back on the train. But
out of sight, out of mind.
He was on JK Helsinki, and you were not repping him on this show.
That's a good point. But I did do a unreleased podcast interview with him from AFCON. So if you're nice to me, Goss, I'll release the tapes for that.
Oh, hey, a little privately.
Everyone, get in the comments and say, Caleb, let them go.
Yeah, Caden, do it, Caden. The thing about this is, Caleb, and I really appreciate your advocacy for Kai in this moment in his career. But this show comes out at 5 p.m. Eastern, and ballots are due for the individual awards at 5 p.m. Eastern. So this is a little bit like releasing.
We got to move this up, Anders. We got to get this out.
We're going to change the results of this election by releasing our final, groundbreaking commercial 2 hours after the polls close.
Fortunately for Kalen, though, he's got a shot at best 11 because you're required to put 3 specific forwards in based off the ballot. So Kai's in the running.
Let's hit Twitter.
Along with Patrick Klamala. Who was also on my ballot.
Little jealous, by the way, of the Kamara children getting goals in a Rainbow Narwhals update from the weekend. Cameron Wiebe pulled up lame about 20 feet from the entrance to the fields with a knee injury and was not able to play in the match this weekend, which was a draw.
What's the scan saying?
We didn't do a scan, but we did go to the playground afterwards, and everything seemed just fine. Yeah, everything was good to go.
I don't know about you, but this sounds like a contract situation.
Yeah, might be a little holdout. What kind of snacks we got here?
Yeah. The chicken and rice situation.
Yeah. We played with some stickers during the game. So congratulations to Kai's kids for participating and scoring this weekend, and to Kai himself. Up to 139 goals, just 6 behind Landon Donovan. I have a feeling that, 1, he's going to get a new contract. 2, we have not seen the end of Kai Kamara performing well in MLS. All right, best thing I saw on decision day. Anders has compiled the final Golden Boot draft standings for me. I have not yet peeked. He said there was a hotly contested race for first and for the spoon. So Doyle, you know which side we're on. Dave and Kalen, you know which side you're on. So let's reveal the results here. In first with 120 goals, the Fightin' Weebies. You had the edge in assists, Doyle, on 57. Too bad it wasn't the assist draft. But I take the championship in the first year, and I have told Anders that I will be going to a trophy shop to have some sort of hardware created for myself. That's how happy I am about this.
I just want to say, I think I speak for Kalen on this as fans of this whole thing because we've not been involved for a while. The fans vote, and I saw this on Reddit, is that with 57 assists, Doyle actually put together the best team.
Yep.
And therefore the fans are awarding him the shield while you can have the cup.
And actually, excuse me, back in the day, the first, I think, 3 years of MLS, the Golden Boot went to the overall scoring champ, not the goals leader.
Oh, now we're talking it was points like in college soccer?
Yeah, it was like college soccer style. So you get like 2 points for a goal and 1 for an assist. I don't know. I must have had that in my brain when I drafted my team. So I think I deserve a trophy too, Weeby. That's how I look at it.
That's fine. Look, Kalen's the only one not getting a trophy because we've got a nice wooden spoon for Dave on 78 goals and just 40 assists. Yeah. So he was dead last in both goals and assists. Took some risks. Went with his heart in the draft, and it's okay.
I think we got to make a rule that we got to keep 5 guys from each of our teams and roll it over to next year.
I'm in favor of a keeper.
I like the keeper. 5 seems like maybe too many.
Nope. You got to live with it, Weeby.
I'm not the one that took Tati. Like I'm good. I feel fine.
Your team, you have like Pepita.
Your team's
Chicharito.
All win now. You went literally with all win now late stage guys where I'm built for the future. I'm in favor of the keeper league.
Okay. Mason Toy did have a goal
called back.
Yeah. And I beat you by 1 goal for the spoon. So you won the spoon, but I don't know. That's a tough one. You got to talk to Toy about that one.
Wow, this is getting discussed on MLS Reddit. Like, there are opinions out there, and we need yours. How should we structure the Golden Boot draft for next year? A staple now of the extra time content farm that we have going. All right, other ones, because I have a list here. Alex Moniz's father celebrating his first goal in stoppage time as the Fire drew the Revs. I'm a dad, so I can explain to you that this was a big moment in Mr. Moniz's life. He'd worked a lot, and it was a pinnacle moment. He probably cried happy tears, if I had to guess. Certainly called and texted all his friends, and might have broke down after the game. Certainly the hug with Alex was one of those moments as a father that you'll remember forever when he came out of the locker room. So I just want to throw it out there for you on that one. And then no
pressure on young Cam.
No. Now we know why he had that knee injury. Oh, God, my knee hurts so bad. Can't play. No, he played with stickers with Nana on the sideline. It was a good day for him as well. Then the other one is Leagues Cup seeding, because we were all thinking about that on decision day. So the top 16 teams in MLS will get seeding in the Leagues Cup, which means they'll host games. I say 16 because the MLS Cup winner will go straight to the group stage. So in big news for the Crew, they finished 16th, so they will be seeded in the Leagues Cup. So that's a consolation prize for you, Columbus Crew supporters. Congratulations on that.
Wow. That's brutal.
Are you really sure you wanted to throw in a congratulations right there, Weepy?
Well, they're seeded for the Leagues Cup. The Leagues Cup is coming to Columbus. What could be better than that?
You're right.
What could be better than that?
Playoffs?
Yeah, that could be better. Yeah, that certainly could. All right,
coach.
Yeah, let's look ahead to the playoffs here. 2022 Audi MLS Cup Playoffs. The bracket is set. If you look over in the Eastern Conference, just to run you through it real quick, of course, Philly got the bye with the 1 seed. They knocked off Toronto this weekend. That guaranteed them that top spot. Montreal won. It wasn't enough. Montreal went to Miami, of course, and won. So Montreal will host Orlando on the other side. Orlando snuck in by virtue of that late win against the Crew. The winner of that one will face the winner of NYCFC Miami. NYCFC winners at Atlanta. Miami, of course sort of fell flat, but they had already made it into the playoffs, so expended that energy. And then the team that plays Philly will come from either the Red Bulls or Cincinnati in the 4 or 5 seeds out west. LAFC are the Shield winners. They lost on decision day at home to Nashville, but they're still won. Galaxy Nashville will play for the right to go to the bank. So we could have El Trafico in the conference semis. Then it's Dallas, Minnesota in the 3-6 game. Austin RSL in the 2-7 game. The first round matchups are Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Saturday, you have the 4 and 5 seeds, Red Bulls Cincinnati at noon on Unimas Tudien, MLSsoccer.com, and the MLS app. Same spots TV-wise for Galaxy Nashville at 3 p.m. Eastern. Then on Sunday, it's Austin RSL, 2-7, and then 2-7 Montreal, Orlando City. ABC on the first one, 3 p.m. Eastern, ESPN for the second at 8 p.m. Then Monday, NYCFC Inter Miami at Red Bull Arena, FS1, 7 p.m. Eastern, and then FC Dallas, Minnesota at 9:30, also on FS1. Let's start with this as we look ahead before we dig deep into decision day. What is the best first-round matchup? What is the most interesting? What's got you looking ahead? What can you not miss? You'll be locked in on. We'll start with you, Doyle.
I think it's Red Bull Cincinnati. It's a clash of styles because the Red Bulls are like just a very defensive team. You're laughing at the cat?
Yeah. It's like it's a person.
She is. She really wants some attention right now.
Being like, are you doing something right now?
Yeah, she's definitely going to fall off this. It's going to be a disaster. Red Bull Cincinnati. Cincinnati, every game is like wildly entertaining from an attacking perspective because of those 3 guys up top. But it's also like always a borderline catastrophe defensively. And we saw it versus DC United. Like we were talking about it on the stream as Cincy roar out to like a 3-0 lead. And then they're like, okay, it's over at 3-0. And they immediately give one back. Then they make it 4-1. Like, okay, it's over now. And then they immediately give one back. Like they've dropped more points from leading positions this year than Columbus did. Like this team, like you're never out of the game against Cincinnati. So that against the Red Bulls team that has not exactly been locked down the stretch here, though they were very good, I think, yesterday. But is a more defense-minded team, very good at forcing you to play their type of game, very good in low scoring. Like of all the playoff teams, the only one in the Eastern Conference that Cincinnati didn't score multiple goals against was the Red Bulls. a pair of 1-1 draws. So it's just a clash of styles, and like that tends to make for really good fights.
Kalen, what are you looking for?
I got my eye on this Austin Real Salt Lake game. I think one, just because the atmosphere at Austin is going to be insane. I think it's sold out in like 6 minutes. It'll be their first playoff game, and then you just never know what's going to happen with Salt Lake, right? I just look back towards last year and the fact that they go in that opening round game, go to Seattle and don't get a single shot and get through, and then it continues forward. And this was kind of a breakout game for them on decision day. And I think I mentioned it on the broadcast yesterday, but I think Salt Lake would want to speed this game up because Austin wasn't in the best form on decision day or even the past couple weeks even. And then, RSL is like, you just want to ride that energy or momentum. They'll see if they can carry that forward, but the expectation will be on Austin and the pressure will be on Austin again, which again suits Real Salt Lake. These two teams did play pretty recently, and Austin beat them 3-0 at home, but it was due to a Gite hat trick, which was the first hat trick in club history, which I think we all remembered, which is pretty incredible to see just in the last 30 minutes of the match. But so, recent history there, but I think you kind of tear that up and throw it all out because I think this is going to be a completely different game. But as far as atmosphere goes, unexpectedness, how it goes, Austin has been waiting for their chance to prove that they're one of the elite teams that can make it far in, the playoffs, but they have no experience doing that so far. So they do have some experienced guys on the roster that I think they'll try and lean on to see how that goes. But I like this Austin team. I think the side of the bracket is pretty good for them, actually. They play them, potentially Dallas, depending on what happens with Minnesota in the next game. But either way, it would be at Austin. So that's the first one I've got my eye on.
If I remember correctly, by the way, that RSL game at Austin was midweek between two home games when they were struggling, and they kind of shipped it. But they were actually pretty good with a inexperienced lineup. For me, the one I said today on MLS Today, which you can go listen to, just search MLS Today on Spotify or any of your podcast apps. We did a big breakdown with Michele, just vibes, just talking about general stuff and some Minnesota stuff. What's NYCFC, Miami? I think it's two teams. I think Miami, to me, is the best team going on the road in this first round if Pozuelo's healthy. And that's a big question mark. I've been saying that for a little while. And so I think they have a huge opportunity, but it's against an NYCFC team that's back. And it feels like they found their feet again as an MLS Cup contender that won it last year. But then you throw in the RBA element. You take away the advantage of Yankee Stadium. There's a lot going on here. I think it's two teams who really know who they are individually. I think for Miami, it sets up okay, especially if they don't have Pozuelo, the way the game will play out because they just have no choice. Going to NYC, they'll have less of the ball. But there's a ton in this one. You add in, could be Higuain's last game ever, or it could be his crowning achievement with them. And is Talos Magno ready to carry this team? Is Eber actually back? Keaton Park's in the playoffs finally. So there's a lot going into this one off the field, but I think on the field, this could be the best soccer game we see in the round. Any
concern about the Talos Magno injury? Or are you still, historically an Eber guy? So just checking.
I think historically, and you look at this team, Pereira has been legit. Santiago Rodriguez, the best soccer he's ever played in MLS, was last year in the playoffs. Andrade is legit, and they get a ton of production out of him. Plus, you add an Eber goal. For NYCFC, one of the reasons they have a shot at this is because they're deep, and their young guys have shown they'll show up in big moments.
Let me ask you though. You said in the middle of this, NYCFC have shown their back over the past 4 games, if you want to include the Atlas game in for Campeones Cup. Like, are you for real? Like, you really think that this team is back to what they were at the start of the season, or back to what they were this time last year as they were about to embark on a MLS Cup winning playoff performance?
I think they're a different team. No James Sands, no Tati. Tinnerholm never came back. I think Chanot's taken a step back.
Tinnerholm's got to be back now because Tavon Gray just went off injured.
Fine. Although Kevin O'Toole popping in as a big guy. You're talking about
I've learned more. I've learned more about Kevin O'Toole in the last 3 weeks than I ever knew I needed.
But anyway, I would say one, it's a different team. So maybe back's the wrong term, but in terms of, I think, having the self-confidence that they can play their game against anyone. And two, the playoff run didn't happen until the playoffs last year. Alfredo Morales wasn't a starter. I thought Chanot was unreal down the stretch. He's always been part of one of the best partnerships. He played the best soccer he played in the playoffs last year. So I think there's an element with this team of understanding the moment and understanding how to step up. But no, they're different. But it doesn't mean that they're not as dangerous or as good. And under Nick Cushing, you have to be different because he can't replicate Ronnie Deila. You're never going to be the same team. So that's probably a better thing than just having the same group that you're trying to roll out and recreate what happened last year.
All right, my first round matchup. I should have worn my Galaxy kit, but it's a little chilly in the basement this morning, so I had to go hoodie. But yeah, Galaxy Nashville, I think as far as star power, as far as just big names, the occasion, what's at stake in the next round to go take on LAFC, that is delicious in every single way. The first day of the postseason, I think, is going to be so fun. Red Bull Cincinnati, I agree with you, Doyle. What I'm praying for is those 1-1s from the regular season, just sort of get like, that's the past. Let's just hope that the future is like, as Chris Smith hit us up on Twitter, something like 10-10 or something crazy in that game, because there's the potential for it to happen. But Ricky Puig, Chicharito, Dan Jovic, all of them score in Houston. The Galaxy sort of, I don't know if they forever got rid of the Houston on decision day jinx that they had going, but it was a good response to the past to sort of sweep that away. And if Chicharito's on form as he has been, if Ricky Puig is the player he's been basically the entire time in MLS, if Dan Jovic, our super sub of the year, is coming off the bench scoring goals, I think this Galaxy team can make a deep, deep run despite some of the defensive frailties. And then Nashville, you have Hani Mukhtar. He's going to be your MVP. I feel really confident saying that. So you have an MVP. You have the Galaxy back in the playoffs trying to get it done. Yeah, I'm here for that game, absolutely. By the way, we had somebody hit us up, Kalen, and ask who our Tuck of the Year is in MLS. Would Ricky Puig be the Tuck of the Year in Major League Soccer?
No
Sam Piet?
Do not disrespect Ray Gaddis coming out of retirement to defend 1v1 in wide open space on the wing for FC Cincinnati. Ray Gaddis always, if he's in MLS, is Tuck of the Year.
That could be like a historical Tuck of the Year.
Yeah, Sam Piet is a strong Tuck.
I mean, he's bringing that Tuck to Qatar, man.
Yeah,
like that's significant.
Very strong Tuck.
Do you tuck when you sit on the sideline?
I would like to see. Tuck.
It's a lifestyle,
here's what I would like to see. I would like to see Sean Davis and Dax McCarty come out against the Galaxy in opening match with the tuck, just to send a message.
Yeah. How about before the first kick, they come untucked, they lock eyes with Ricky, then they tuck on the field in public as a sign.
Yeah, that's too complicated.
Okay, sorry. My bad. Went too far with that one. Okay. All right. Remember, the playoffs are starting on October 15th. That is Saturday, so that is less than a week's time at this point. Sunday, Monday, you got 2 games each day. Full coverage, full TV listings, MLSsoccer.com and the MLS app. We will be on MLSsoccer.com and the MLS app with pregame, halftime, postgame shows on that Saturday. We'll also have pregame Twitter Spaces going forward in the playoffs, and then postgame shows after the final game of the day, every single match day during the playoffs. So MLS YouTube, I believe Twitch as well. Anders can correct me, but we will tell you where to go. If you're looking for postgame shows, if you're looking for analysis, that's where we'll be. We will be there to answer your questions, look at highlights, talk about the calls, the decisions, the plays, whatever it is that come out of these playoffs. It should be a really good time. All right, let's dig into Decision Day. We'll do our full MLS playoffs preview on Thursday, and we'll do a little bit of a truncated version at the end of the show. But we got to talk Decision Day and get a little deep here. Eastern Conference kicks us off because the news, as we said, is that Caleb Porter has been dismissed as head coach of the Columbus Crew. Crew go to Orlando, Doyle. They're up 1-0, and we've seen this before, and that's what Caleb basically said afterwards. Up 1-0, then it's 1-1. Junior Urso turns Jonathan Mensah, nice little finish to the back post, and then penalty. Degenek has his hand up. It doesn't get caught on the field. VAR catches it. It is a handball. It is called, and guess who goes to the spot? El Cuervo, Facundo Torres, goes and scores it. 9 goals, 10 assists on the season for Torres. We'll talk about Orlando in just a second, but here are some of the quotes here from Caleb Porter afterwards, and we'll get to the decision to let him go as well. Quote from Caleb: "The recurring nightmare is we shoot ourselves in the foot in the second half. That happened in far too many games this year. Quote, I do believe that the game can be cruel, but I also believe in the long run it's fair. We obviously didn't deserve to be in the playoffs. quote, I'm the head coach and I'm going to take the majority of the blame. As of Monday morning, that came. Caleb Porter taking that blame and losing his job in Columbus. Here's a quote from Tim Bezpachinko. This is not a decision we took lightly. I need to first and foremost thank Caleb for his tireless efforts for the Crew during his 4 seasons with the club. He joined the club ahead of 2019, provided steady leadership at a critical moment of historic transition for the Crew. Caleb will forever be a part of Black and Gold history, as the second star above our crest from 2020 is a testament to his contributions and what we were able to bring home during a special year. We assessed the 2022 season as a whole, and it's clear that we fell short in our collective goals. Namely, our goal is to consistently contend for championships. This starts with making the playoffs and then securing a home match as a top 4 team in the conference. We all share in the responsibility of the results and unmet objectives this season, including myself. As part of our evaluation, we believe we have a talented core of our roster in place and felt we needed to make a change this offseason as we position ourselves for success in 2023 and beyond. First reactions, Doyle, to the news this morning as well as the result last night.
Yeah, it's not surprising. They missed the playoffs 3 times in 4 years. And, after that 2020 run to MLS Cup, it looked like they were set up to be something close to a mini dynasty. They had that much talent and that much quality in the team. They also have, an academy that's starting to produce players who can contribute, and it just, for whatever reason, it just never worked. I don't think there's anything wrong with the game model. I don't think there's anything bad about how Caleb Porter wants to see the game played for this Columbus Crew. Like when, and we've all seen it, right? When they are able to put the pedal down, they play some of the best soccer in the league. They're able to, they're that 4-2-3-1, guys buzzing all over the field. Zelarayan, creating danger out of anything. You can't press him because of Nagbe. The wingers are getting into good spots. There is nothing wrong with the game model, but what we see in sports, not just soccer, not just MLS, but all sports, is like sometimes the voice needs to change. Sometimes at whatever point, players tune the coach out. And that's the only thing that I can see that happened here in Columbus, because even in this game yesterday, for the first half, they were so much better than Orlando. And whatever Caleb said at halftime, I'm sure it wasn't, just drop your line 6 yards deeper, give them the ball. Don't worry about it. We got this. I'm sure it was the opposite of that. But the effect it had was Columbus came out, gave Orlando the ball, dropped their line 6 yards deeper, started taking unnecessary defensive risks, and once again turned a win into a loss.
I agree with you, Doyle. I mean, clearly, if you can't fix the problem after that amount of time, then the messenger is not working. I would say the commitment to what they do, right? The best teams in MLS, they're up 1-0. They play their soccer up until the 90th minute.
Yep.
And Columbus just never did that. And so while I get a part of it is just the players doing it on the field, I do think a part of that is Caleb, right? Trusting your defenders to defend in space, believing in what you believe in, and saying, if we play on the front foot for 90 minutes, we'll win. I think there was a level of fear and acceptance in late moments, and I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't think it's an accident. I think it comes from the top down inside that locker room. And so you couldn't fix the problem, but I do think the problem has something to do with the way that Caleb has pushed them to play and sort of the way they react to big situations. A lot of this is set up, though, so it'll be interesting going forward. Doyle mentioned the game model. A lot of the players fit into that. A lot of the players are in their prime or ready to be in their prime. There's not a ton of roster turnover that you will see. So it'll be interesting to see who the next coach is, what they're brought in, what the reasons are in terms of what they're trying to bring into the club for the next person. But it's unfortunate because, as Doyle said, 45, 50 minutes on the road, all you needed was a tie. They were the better soccer team. They played well. And quite honestly, Mensah has a momentary lapse. They didn't give up another big chance besides the penalty kick. The penalty kick doesn't really come out of a ton of play. I will say, I told you guys this yesterday, Benji Michel gets a ton of time in the box, which is not reacting to the moment, not panicking, not understanding. But again, I don't know that Columbus would have given up a second goal out of the run of play in that game, but they do. and then they can't get back into fifth gear. They're stuck in third gear for the rest of that game, and that's the story of their season, which, as Caleb said, he takes blame for.
The only thing I could say to add on to it is, I can only judge. I'm not in the locker room, so I don't know what it's like in the locker room or what's going on there. But from all of the things that I kept seeing, I mean, a lot of the stories you guys are saying were stories that were being told kind of like consistently over time of, we were the better team, right? How many times do we hear Caleb come out after a match or at halftime and say, I thought we were the better team, even in matches that they lost, right? And I actually don't think he was wrong for stretches of that match, right? For a lot of that. And you saw some beautiful stuff, even on this final day, that the goal, the combination play with Etienne and Zelarayan was one of the best goals of the weekend. They'd play some really good stuff. But at some point, it came down to a lot of like excuses, or I would say pointing fingers, where even Caleb at times when Jossie got traded, came out and said, this guy wasn't an elite goal scorer for us. Or when the substitutions weren't working, it was like, the subs, I got to think about who I'm going to put on the pitch, right? And it kind of, for me, the last 20 minutes of a game or last 15 minutes of a game, often on the best teams I've played on, come down to less about, the tactical setup, while that's important. But I think some of it is like the culture, the personality of the team. And I think what began to happen, as you mentioned, towards that lot of space for Benji Michel, is a little bit of a culture of maybe pointing the finger or expecting someone else to grab the game or to make a responsible play. And I think we've seen on the other side of things, when we look at decision day, and I heard Jim Curtin talking after the match yesterday in his press conference, talking about the will to like keep a clean sheet and the fight of the team to like make an extra tackle or to make a dirty play or whatever it takes, take a foul, just to keep a clean and that's to keep a clean sheet in games where it's like 6-0, 4-0, right? And I think that was some of the spirit or the measure of a culture of a team. And ultimately that does fall on the head coach. I think it's your responsibility to set the culture to get the best out of the group. And at moments we saw this Crew team when they went and won MLS Cup. It was because they had a lot of that within their team. Yes, all the quality, but it's a lot of the same players. We were talking during the match to say Mensah, Room, Nagbe, Zelarayan, these are like Pedro Santos, Etienne, like a lot of guys that have played in big matches. So it wasn't like they walked into decision day unaware of the stakes. It was just that they couldn't kind of muster that moment. And some of it becomes a learned habit where it starts to, okay, well, here we go. Concede one, here comes the next. And that's what it felt like, even down to the final day.
And let me give you the contrast, because I sat between the two benches yesterday of Orlando up on the sideline as a group, yelling, engaging with their players, interacting. Mauricio Pereira getting subbed out and back up on the sideline, yelling at players, pushing players. Oscar Pareja there the whole time. And looking over to the left and Caleb getting up and down, no one else is up for Columbus. It did, to Kalen's point, feel like a group that, one, accepted what happened, but two, no one felt the responsibility to get up off the bench and push their team or to be engaged or to come over and talk. Even Artur, who I think would be that guy, gets subbed out, and he's not in that space where you're looking at Mauricio Pereira getting held back from fourth officials, which probably is not ideal because he's so engaged. And this is a guy who can't play the soccer he wants to play anymore, really physically, but he's still putting it all out there. And I was at Oscar Pereira's last game with FC Dallas, and I remember, right, they were out of ideas. Nothing was different, but those players played for him to every single second, right? The energy, the passion was there. They ran through a wall. They just didn't have an idea of how to get around the wall. And I didn't see that with Columbus. And so I think Kalen's point is pretty spot on.
So 45, 43, and 37 regular season record for Caleb Porter in Columbus. 2 trophies to his name, of course, the 2020 MLS Cup in the pandemic year and the 2021 Campeones Cup brought to the some silverware that Caleb Porter brought to Columbus. I'm just going to ask this question, and we don't have to go deep in it because obviously it's decision day. This is a question for the remainder of the offseason. We'll get to it more. First name that pops in your head for the Crew as far as managers. Who would be the first names that pop into your head?
The first one I said was Robin Fraser. Was the assistant at Toronto.
He's not leaving. He's not leaving Colorado.
Money talks, not
you don't
for
think so?
him.
Why?
For Colorado.
But he just like, first of all, his family's in Colorado, and second of all, just at the start of this year, he signed a big long-term extension with the Rapids.
And you don't think building the best team in the West having it sold out from under you and not replaced changes your mindset at all?
I mean,
he has to know that he's near the ceiling.
Yeah,
and how tough it will be.
I get what you're saying, but
you would have to take the call, no doubt about it. You could throw out. I'll throw out somebody who maybe there's not a connection there with Bez Pachinko the same way that Robin Fraser has, but like if we're talking about trying to go somewhere in the league and get a coach that fits your game model and has had success doing a lot of the things you want, Wilfried Nancy. I would try to.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I would say.
If I'm calling people, I'd call if I was any team with an opening, I would be calling Wilfried Nancy, but I would call Wilfried Nancy.
I think
that whole team is about to get turned over too.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Jason Benton was the one that popped in my head. He was a TFC2 coach, and now he's been Greg Vanney's assistant. Again, Tim worked with Greg very successfully in Toronto, and it's similar soccer ideas and a guy that they have background with. It goes back to, again, outside of Dome Torrent, and now the guys who have been fired, which I don't think Caleb Porter is going to be the next guy, there isn't a ton of MLS head coaching experience out there that's available if you are not pulling from someone who's currently coaching a team.
Who coached Crew 2, Dave? MLS Next Pro
Laurent
Champions.
Courtois.
Yeah, that's not a...
He's been there for 2 years. They played slightly different than I think the first team. And again, they finished games. They played to the end. And I would say part of what you saw, Aiden Morris got pushed into the first team, but Sean Zwiowski was one of the best players in MLS Next Pro. Isaiah Parente, incredible as well. Jason Russell-Rowe, Mo Farsi. He developed those guys, but also I don't think they were used properly at the first team level to get the crew across the line in MLS. And I think when you say, Doyle mentioned it, they've rebuilt the academy, they've rebuilt the pipeline. You do want a coach who's going to use those guys, because that's what Columbus, if they're going to be the team they're going to be and succeed in MLS, they're going to need to get some production out of that.
I'm just saying, Wilfried Nancy, possession-based style, develops young players.
Why are you doing this?
I'm just throwing out a name. It's not like I know anything. I'm just, if I was trying to hire a coach, I would. That's who I would be trying to talk to in MLS right now. That's just all I'm saying. All right, Orlando. Let's talk Orlando. Sneaks in at the death, baby. Don't ever count out these Lions. Pure vibes, according to David Goss. I don't know why. I don't know if somebody said this or if this is just Anders, but I'm going to quote him on this. This is Anders Arhus. Balls of steel from, quote, just a guy Facundo Torres. 9 goals, 10 assists in 29 games started, 33 games played. Helped get him to that Open Cup championship. And here's the quote from Oscar Pareja. Quote, he carried the team to win the Open Cup. Today, he carried the team. At the age of 21, it's incredible. His maturity and humbleness, Orlando should be so happy to have a player like him. Orlando's been almost impossible to sort of call this year. Like, this game is sort of a microcosm for me of their whole season, where it looks completely uninspired, but then in crucial moments, they find a way. What did you see from them in person, Dave? What did you hear? What was your impression of what this game meant to them, and then how they reacted to the result at the end?
The script is that they're unscripted, and everything about what you walk away saying is emotional and psychological, but it's an emotional sport, right? This is a game where you play the way you are, and so you have to feel empowered. And I think this is a team that does that. Listen, missing Antonio Carlos, missing Robin Janssen, that's a huge loss for them to step up and be able to get this win. João Moutinho gets slid in at center back. They lost a lot going forward, having Kyle Smith at left back. There was just zero verticality to that side of the field. There was no one for Angulo to play off of, and therefore he couldn't be as dangerous. Urso and Pereira didn't go to that side of the field as much because there wasn't much to use for them. And Erkan Kara touched the ball, I think, 12 times in this game. So he was invisible as well. But when you are in person, Facundo Torres is not a guy. Like, when you watch him off the ball and you feel the game with him there, he's the guy, and he's the guy at an age where there are a few players that have ever done that in MLS, demanding the ball, finding the space, understanding the field behind him. Yeah, he's always going to go left and he's always going to come in field, but that doesn't mean you can stop it. So it was really cool to watch him sort of cover the field, find the game, do what he wanted. But it wasn't until the second half when Junior Urso decided to turn up field that they had enough to create. Mauricio Pereira is just not, he's not an attacking threat anymore. And so if it doesn't come out of Huan, then it has to come out of Urso and Facundo Torres. And that's the difference for them is once he unleashed himself and said, I'm going to take risks, there was enough there for them to get over the line.
What can they do in the playoffs, Doyle?
I don't expect them to do anything in the playoffs. And one of the points David made is Mauricio Pereira not really an attacking threat, but that's due to like one of the best tactical adjustments that anybody has made in the league this year was when Pareja actually pushed Junior Urso up to play as a number 10 and dropped Mauricio Pereira back as a number 8. That gave Orlando the ability to sort of build deeper in midfield a little more precisely, create a little more tempo in their attack. And the other thing is by putting Junior Urso higher upfield, he's a better defensive player. He works harder to shut down distribution from the opposing backline. So it became more difficult for teams to sort of just build right into the central midfield for Orlando City, or against Orlando City, I guess I should say. And like it's not like he didn't land a straight flush with that one, but like it made this team significantly better in the second half of the season. And then Junior Urso obviously has the ability to pop up and score a goal every now and again as well. I still can't put my finger on one thing that they do particularly well. Like it's not like you watch them and it's overwhelming in any particular aspect. Facundo Torres is good, but is he carry a team deep into the playoffs good? I don't think so. I don't think he's at that level. Like he might get there in the next couple of years, but he's not that level, I think, yet this season. And then the other side is Robin Jansen's gone. Like he's not coming back until February at the earliest, and he's their best defender. He might be their best overall player. And losing him, not just his passing, but he carries the ball out of the back. He's so good at carrying the ball past the first line of the opposing defense, which then compromises the opposing midfield and then slipping those passes into the half spaces. They miss that so much. So I think if Orlando City is going to do something, it's going to have to end up being a lot of like what we saw yesterday, where they were just like, got as many numbers behind the ball as they could, and you just hope that one of your special players can make a special play. I don't think that they have as many clubs in the bag as the teams that they're going to be facing in the postseason.
I agree with Doyle on everything. The thing they have besides the hope your special player does something is they want to play the game unhinged. If you fall into it, they've got a shot. If you allow yourself to play an Orlando City soccer game where everyone's yelling at the ref and the game is stretched and there's chaos and there's quick free kicks and there's slow free kicks and a lot's going on, you play into their hand. They are better at it than you are. So it falls on this week Montreal and potentially someone else in the future to just not get sucked into that. It's harder for them to do it on the road because it's your atmosphere, it's your crowd, but that's Montreal's responsibility to make sure, not just for 60, for 90 minutes, because that's what Columbus did. They did it for 60, for 90 minutes, that you don't get sucked into that.
Don't get Schlegeled. That's the lesson here.
I mean, Schlegel's taking guys' legs out and looking at the ref like he cannot believe
he's a best 11 gesticulator. There's no doubt about it. Like
Pedro Gallese was very good yesterday too. He made some big saves. So if they have any chance, I think it's going to be a quick trip for them. But even still, winning. If you tell me they've already got a trophy this year and then made the playoffs, which a lot of teams had to kind of sacrifice one for the other, and they both came through. And I do think that Papi does have like something about this team in the playoffs, like you're saying, goes towards chaos and madness. Sometimes I can end up in playing a man down. Sometimes I can end up in fighting to the very end or getting a crazy equalizer. But I think Montreal's got to be big favorites in this one.
And just to close out, Pereira said in the postgame when asked, what can they do? They beat NYC. They beat Philly. They beat Montreal in the regular season. They won US Open Cup. They have these moments to fall back on. And that's what Urso said that he said at halftime is remember who you are. And they bounce back they got crushed on Wednesday to their rival, lost in the first half, and they bounce back. So they have this whole mental thing going on. The question is just the soccer.
All right, let's talk Cincinnati, because the other part of this equation for Crew and Orlando was what was going to happen in the nation's capital. Could DC do something special? DC did not do something special.
Well, come on, that was a special game to watch.
Yeah, it was. That's why you want Cincy. That's why you want Cincy in the playoffs, because we got 7 goals, 5 goals, Brenner hat trick, 18 goals on the season for Brenner, 18 goals on the season for Brandon Vasquez. That is the first time in MLS history that 2 teammates have gone for at least 18 goals each. And it's in Cincinnati. Brenner, I swear, you go do the research right now.
1998 Galaxy have got to have
go look.
All right.
Vasquez and Brenner, 18 and 18. Lucho Acosta,
well,
10 and 19.
Assists don't count. It's not
no point.
It's a part of it. We'll get to that here in just a second. I got
Doyle's thinking about the MAC championship in 1987.
Wow. 1998 Galaxy had Kobe with 19 and then Welton with 17.
Wow.
Okay. All right.
Come with the king, best not miss. Okay. But look, this was a super fun game. And I think Charlie Davies said it. You said it on the watch along. Also, Kalen, don't come into it timid, Cincinnati. Now, yes, you've stepped on a uncountable number of rakes in your MLS lifetime. But in this case, just go full bore. Just try to put DC in a position where they're just like, no, you're right. Our season is over. We don't have a chance. And they basically did that. They buried them. And now they're going to the playoffs as the 5th seed. They've got a chance to go against Philly in the second round if they can get the job done in the first. They've been basically even home and away, just sort of 6 wins, both spots, I think it is. It hasn't been discernible an advantage at home. They've blown a lot of leads there. Let's just talk big picture, though. Cincy is in the playoffs. I repeat, FC Cincinnati, with an opportunity to control their own fate and a possible choke possibility, got the job done. Kalen, they're in.
Yeah, I was looking back at the highlights of this one. I mean, the quality, yes, you can say DC United at the bottom, right? But the quality of these goals in this game were insane. The way that the little 1-2 with Brenner, where he just first time comes off Vasquez and puts it into the upper corner, it's the combination play between the 3 of these guys with Lucho, Vasquez, and Brenner is it's pick your poison. It's who are you gonna?
The 1998 Galaxy.
Yeah, it's at times it's
who's
oh
better
wow.
in a shootout though? I'm
is that Lucho Acosta playing that through ball? And then it's oh no, that's Vasquez. He's taking it down with his quad and then springing him in behind, and then it's just constant movement, the understanding amongst each other. Yeah, the header
in
back
the
across.
Channel, you're coming, you're running into the channel, and your idea is to flick it back to the center of the field for Lucho Acosta to score a goal. That is an absurd assist. Sorry.
Yeah, also a good ball from Miazga over the top there. So I just think
Haglund.
Oh, was it? Oh.
Yeah.
We had that wrong on the show.
Wow, there were the shadows on the field.
That was the only time all day we were wrong.
Those shadows on the field, you can't really blame us, by the way. And who would have guessed it was Nick Haglund pinging that ball over the top? Not I. Well done, Nick.
But yeah, if you're Red Bull though, and I know they're going to want to come out and fight, right? And they're often play kind of wild games, but you do not want to go into a shootout with this FC Cincinnati team. That is going to be a recipe. It's just hard you don't have the firepower that Cincinnati has. So I think they're going to want to play much closer to what we've seen between these two teams in the past of the 1-1 game, but that's very difficult to contain this Cincinnati attack. And yes, Cincinnati will concede, but it's almost you have to think how many goals is it going to take to beat these guys? Because you're not going to hold them, a clean sheet. It's just not going to happen. So I don't know. I think this Cincinnati team is a dangerous team. And then if you look even beyond them, going towards Philadelphia with a game and a little bit of a longer break for Philly. I saw Jim Curtin also say I want this game as soon as possible. And this Cincinnati team with a game under their belt, firing, they've matched up quite well against Philadelphia in the past this season. I think they beat them in August 3-1. And I think the other one was a draw. So the matchup there is a little bit scary, but either way, Red Bull against Philly coming through, that history is always, it'd be a different type of game. But then even if you think about the amount of goals that could potentially happen between, well, I don't know. I guess Philly hasn't given up a goal. They just score a ton. But yeah, I could see that matchup being a really interesting one.
Yeah, one thing you say about this FC Cincinnati, some teams might put their heads down if they concede multiple goals. Cincinnati's done it so many times. They're like, oh, okay, like, cool, been there. Like, we'll just keep going.
I think it really will fall on Red Bull's finishing. Like, this feels like the type of game where Cincinnati's going to give you those chances. If Red Bull doesn't put them away and put them away early, they're going to look back and say, we were the better team for the first 45 minutes and we're down 2-0. Because, again, Cincinnati's unstoppable in the attack and they will score goals.
I just want to point out that Red Bulls faced them twice this year.
1-1.
Red Bulls slowed it. They didn't completely stop them, but they did a better job of it than anybody else. Did
Lucho play in both those games?
He did.
Okay.
Well, I know he played in. Now I don't remember the first or second one because he and Aaron Long got into it like after the whistle in one of those games.
Lucho there was that beef. Ooh, that makes it a little tasty as well.
Yeah, a little bit spicy.
Lucho got a red card in the 90+3 of the July 9th game.
Right.
Also, Alan Cruz got a red card in that game as well in the 58th minute. So there were some
way to get yourself on the score sheet, Alan Cruz.
Extenuating circumstances as well. Patrick Klimala scored a PK in the August 20th 1-1 draw. Matt Miazga, you will remember in the 13th minute, scored in that one. And it appears to me that Lucho was on the field as well as Brenner and Brandon Vasquez in that 1-1 draw as well.
So it just feels like, and it's a good time to do it for Red Bulls, right? Their new signing scores 2 goals this weekend. He's had 2 assists.
Say his name.
The last few weeks. Manuel?
Yeah, Elias Manuel. Let's go.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, they needed it. Good timing, man.
Listen, as someone who's been hurt before, I'm not going to learn his name until I know he's going to be sticking around. I don't learn 1-year loan names.
Who's the other Brazilian that had a good season and then went back to Brazil?
Fabio.
Yeah, and then was like, oh, this isn't working out. I'd love to come back to Red Bulls. And it's like, wait, what's going on here? Yeah. Anyway, congratulations to FC.
Both better than Ashley Fletcher.
They will start out. There's a greatest hits lineup here that we could go through. I think
Samuel Tete serving balls in from the right side.
Omer Damari.
Oh, wow.
Hit that one for you. Yeah, hit that one for you. All right. So congrats to Cincinnati. We'll talk about them a whole lot more on Thursday because they start off these Audi 2022 MLS Cup Playoffs in Harrison, of course, against the Red Bulls on that Saturday, and then it'll be Galaxy Nashville after that on Unimas, and then today at MLSsoccer.com. Ryan Rosenblatt had a good tweet here on the Ferreira, Vasquez, and Abobasi goals this year. Only one American had scored more than 16 goals in an MLS season since 2014. That was Giassi in 2018. Now, Jesus, Brandon, and Jeremy all have done it this year with more than 16 goals. So really a wonderful season for young American strikers. So congratulations to all those guys.
You can't develop domestic attacking players, and the system's not working.
And it's got to be a little painful for Brandon Vasquez to have the season that he had and then be pretty certain he's not going to get a shot to go to the World Cup. But I guess that's the way it falls. We'll see afterwards. All right, Philly grabbed the top spot in the East. We know that for a win. Daniel Gazdag was the Goss Theorem Player of the Year, right? Or was it?
He
Brenner?
was also on my Golden Boot draft team.
Yeah, you really went in on the Gazdag train. It paid off for you. 22-10 for Daniel Gazdag. Wow. Great into the regular season for him. Philly also ending the way they should, whooping a team out of playoff contention in the East 4-0 against Toronto. Arguably the best defensive season of all time, and maybe the best goal differential season of all time outside of that LAFC team in 2019. I mean, it's a 2-goal difference, so it's not massive, but what a season for the Union. Ultimately fell short on wins. LAFC win the Supporters' Shield on that tiebreaker. So had they gotten a result in Charlotte, maybe a different story for them. Maybe
we should actually explain this. Like, MLS is, I think, maybe the only league in the world whose first tiebreaker is wins as opposed to goal differential. And I don't remember exactly when they made this change because it used to be goal differential for us. But if you look at MLS standings from 10, 12 years ago, maybe even longer, there weren't a lot of teams like it was pretty standard operating procedure to go on the road and be like, let's just play for the point, boys. Like we're just going out here to get a point. And Kalen's smiling. Kalen's like, these are the glory days. Like, I remember this really.
Kalen's dreaming about trips to KC.
He's like going to frustrate these guys.
We're going to scrap out a 0-0 here.
Have you ever played in Colorado and on the 4th of July? It's hot, crazy, man. You don't know.
Yeah. So
Rico Clark man of the match week after week.
Yeah, I'm not trying to win that game. Come on now. What are you talking about?
So whenever whenever the decision was made, it was made with the idea that like, okay, let's reward the teams that go out and play for the win. I think it served its purpose. I think MLS is a much more fun league than it was back in Kalen Carr's
Is this a long way of you saying that it should have gone to goal differential, and you think the Philadelphia Union are the true Supporters Shield winners?
I'm not going to say that, but I'm saying it's worth considering going back to goal differential as the first tiebreaker in 2023 and beyond.
All right, here's my counter argument to that. I think some of the teams in MLS are way worse now than 10 years ago. And so I think if there are certain games where you go against, and I'm not going to go into Weeby's whole bonus game converse, but if you're running up,
branding is so good that it got fit into this conversation.
But it did. It works. But I think that sometimes can skew the results. Also, when you think of like the unbalanced schedule of the different games that you play too, there's a couple factors there. But I hear your point.
You can just say DC United if you want to.
DC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alejandro Bedoya also came on as a sub in this game for the Union, so that's a big deal for them. Jim Curtin wanted to play as soon as possible. He will play on not this coming Thursday, but the next Thursday, whereas LAFC will have to wait 2 full weeks. So that's still like 10 or 11 days there. So we'll talk about that more here in just a second. Inter Miami hosting Montreal.
On the same day?
I don't.
Philly and LAFC play next Thursday, I believe.
Both next Thursday?
That's what I thought I read.
Who knows? Reading is hard, and I may have skimmed over it this morning.
Yeah, they both play on Thursday, October 20th.
Good fact check there, Dave. Really appreciate that one. You're here to
and as seeded teams, that's a huge deal. You know,
nobody will get that reference, but maybe we'll make it here in a second. Inter Miami at home, they expended all their energy midweek, and then Montreal came to town and whooped them.
Inter Miami doing that is a reference Doyle will most definitely get, which was Knicks hosting a noon Sunday tip, which is like, people partied the night before. You're not getting a win on that one.
By the way, I pulled this stat when looked it up because Montreal had 11 away wins this year, and I was like, that has got to be close to the all-time record. So I went and looked up the most single-season road wins in MLS history. 98 LA Galaxy had 13, 3 losses, no ties. 99 DC United had 13 wins, 3 losses, no ties. And you might be wondering, no ties. That's it. How does that happen? Well, it's because that was the shootout era. So in actuality, some of those away wins were actually draws with shootout wins.
Jeff Agus was like flipping the ball up to himself and lobbing keepers on those penalty shootouts. Well, it's unstoppable.
And to say, look, the 99 DC United squad actually only had 9 true away victories. They had 4 shootouts. So, okay, Montreal has a chance. Maybe they have the most single-season true road wins ever. No, not to be. 98 LA Galaxy had 12 true road wins. So Montreal followed 1 short, but a really incredible season for them away from Montreal.
Let's state it this way. Montreal with 11 wins for a home team would have been 3rd best in MLS.
Yeah.
Like that 11 wins on the road is more than everyone except LAFC and Philly won in their own building.
Did we all vote Wilfred Nancy for Coach of the Year?
I did.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. There were a lot of good contenders, but what he did this year, they were a solid team last year, and they just got like 15% better across the board, and they stayed good even when they were without Georgie, even down the stretch here without Hamel Kyoto. He just did a fantastic job at 65 points. Like, I thought this team would be a playoff team this year. I did not think they would hit 60 points, let alone 65.
I almost won the Shield. Yeah. Yep. So the other notes in the Eastern Conference, NYCFC kept their seeding, the 3rd seed, by going to Atlanta and winning 2-1. Tyus Magno went off injured with like a dislocated shoulder, maybe. Like, he might have popped it back in the first half. It was not something... Yeah, ugly. Don't go watch that. Hopefully he's okay. He's available for the playoffs. We shall see. We'll update you more on Thursday. Did Josef play his last game in Atlanta? He referenced all media attention to Carlos Bocanegra and Gonzalo Pineda afterwards. Said, "Don't talk to me. Talk to those guys." Which, I mean, all the writing on the wall.
This whole thing deserves an hour-and-a-half long show of its own, because it's like, if you're Atlanta, can you make this decision before you get a new club president in there? Because they haven't, Darren Eales left, man. There's nobody at the top of this decision-making tree. And when it comes to a player like Josef, who became literally a superstar, right? He was not a big name before he got to Atlanta, and then he became a guy who was painted on the side of buildings. It doesn't feel like a coach and a GM who are both presumably on the hot seat, who might not be there next year if the new club president that this team hires, wants to bring in his own guys. This does not seem like the type of decision that you leave to guys who are in that position.
But we don't know what the president's role is going to be with Atlanta United, right? Like, because it could be somebody who's just coming in on the business side. It could be somebody who's coming in on the sporting side. I understand the two are, I guess, tied together, obviously, in a professional sports league. But I wonder if they might look more for a business hire, and then because they feel solid about the group that they have. And I think the Pineda argument is, as coming in just this first year, I think the expectation is for him to kind of grow over time within this role and within the organization. And, but where Josef goes,
but if the sporting side doesn't change, it's impossible to me to see that Josef would come back. He has a year contract left. So what do? Do you want to trade him in MLS? I would not trade him in the Eastern Conference.
No.
0% chance I would do that if I was Atlanta. What is somebody going to give you for him? What's he going to want from that team as far as a contract? Do they have it available? Do they have the culture to integrate him and get the best out of him? He's not going to be a guy you send to like a doormat and be like, hey, rebuild this from the bottom up. Like, that is not the right situation for Josef Martinez. He needs to go to a team that's going to contend, has big personalities that already sort of own the locker room, and he can just be himself. Okay, so if that's not going to work for you, nobody's going to come. Do you buy him out and then he could go anywhere? He could stay in MLS wherever he wants to go. Technically, he could go, I don't know, to South America, to Mexico. I don't know. There's a lot on the table here. And
it feels like if he's not going to be moved in MLS and not come back on the last year of his deal, there's a chance that you can negotiate a way out because he wants his next long-term contract. And he can't afford a second year where he's not successful to then go out into the market and try and find his contract. So there's probably a mutual parting of ways there. To me, and I said it on your show yesterday, Nashville, Minnesota, and Portland, they all fit that description. They're in the West. They've got cultures that are built. They need forwards. You'd assume the deal will be pretty heavily performance-based, right? If we re-sign him, it's another $700K in allocation. If he appears 25 times, if he scores double-digit goals, whatever. But for Atlanta, that might be the best you can get. And again, you're just trying to get something so that you can reset and sort of move on and do right by him and right by your fan base. So I think there's a possibility there. But as you said, it's pretty chaotic because you don't really have a clear vision of who you are while you're trying to make this move.
Certainly we will have an opportunity to do a full hour-and-a-half show on just Josef Martinez because there's nothing coming. Playoffs, World Cup, St. Louis.
Also throw out Austin, right? Didn't we throw out Austin?
Yeah, I didn't throw out Austin.
Yeah, we could throw out Austin. I don't think Nashville's realistic because I just don't think Nashville would touch that.
Way he's going to Austin.
There's not many places in MLS that I look at and say that. Yeah, it's hard. All right, let's talk West. Home teams handle their business. RSL was hosting Portland. How to win. Minnesota was hosting Vancouver. How to win. Let's start with RSL Timbers. Are we still doing the X-Dog thing here? Because they had some nice passages of play in this one as well against the Timbers. 3-1 win, I believe, if I remember correctly, for RSL. It felt kind of over early on as RSL built their lead. Big shout out to Bodie Hidalgo, by the way. Did not know that name when he scored the goal for RSL. Used to be Bodie Davis. There's a history there why he chose to change his name to Hidalgo. Shout out to Bodie. It's a great story, and I hope somebody in Salt Lake will tell that story here very soon. But Brian and Courtney Babb hit us up, said, finally, Matt Doyle thought the halftime. I don't know why you were thrown in there. Finally, Matt Doyle thought the halftime sub of Hato for Jasper was the beginning of the end for RSL against Cincy. Wait, this is from a different one? I'm sorry.
Yeah, boy, Weeby. Strong boomer energy right now from Weeby.
All right, regroup. Thomas Souza in my DMs. How does RSL make the playoffs these past 2 years with the squads they've had? Question mark, exclamation mark.
X-Dog.
In Brazil, we have this saying that the big clubs have a heavy-ish in terms of history, which helps carry them to greatness, regardless of if the squad is quote-unquote weaker compared to past successful years. RSL have 2 MLS Cups. Does that qualify them as a big club in terms of MLS history? How did they do this?
They have 1 MLS Cup. They have 2 MLS Cup appearances.
Fair.
Right? Okay. No, they're not a big club in MLS history, but like the team, the Beckerman, Javier Morales, Emerson Olave, Nat Borchers team was, one of the great teams in MLS history. What are we even asking here? What is the question? Like, how did this team make the playoffs?
Yeah, how'd they do this?
They execute really, really hard. Like anything they do with full commitment. So even if it's, something crazy where they're leaving zone 14 exposed, well, at least they're getting pressure to the ball on the flanks. They're allowing a million box entries. Well, they're defending like their hair is on fire in the box. And Zach McMath had mostly a very good year in goal as well. So anything they do, it's like the opposite of the Crew, right? Like I think that other than what they do in terms of trying to get into like to the sides of the box, the primary assist zones, I'm not in love with RSL's game model, but the players execute it with complete commitment. Whereas like what we were talking about with the Crew, there's nothing wrong with their game model, but the players didn't look, I don't think, completely bought in. And it's like effort is such a differentiating factor in this league. And the other thing I should say is like Justin Glad's really good. They have a really, really good center back, and Silva's not bad too. So they have a pretty solid center back pairing. They have some really dynamic fullbacks. Ruiz is limited defensively, but he hits some of the best diagonals in the league. And then, Pablo's almost completely agnostic about where he finds talent. So if somebody's like, Jasper Lopelson from the 4th round in the draft, if he's showing in camp that he can play, then he's going to play. And I think that sort of equality and approach throughout the roster, I assume it's easier to get buy-in up and down the roster when the coach approaches it like that.
You also have a ton of guys who are homegrowns, a ton of guys who are academy guys who it matters to them to play for the club. But a lot of them are coming out of college too, so they're a little bit more mature, and they don't have the ceilings of the players we talk about when we talk about homegrowns. But as Doyle said, they'd rather die on the field for you than to let you down. And I don't think it's a mistake also, that market. Like, I think the fan base has expectations. I think the team's relevant in their market, and there's pressure on them. And even when they're bad, they still fight. Like, I'm saying past year, it's not just this year. Like, they are still in games. They don't give up on themselves. And I don't think it's a mistake that fan base has expectations of what they've seen, and they're known when they walk around that city and that area, and everyone knows what RSL stands for and who they are. So I think all of that sort of combines for it. Now, I will say this. I've said this a couple times. Goals cost money.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing they've lacked. Jefferson Savarino's a DP. He popped up and scored that first goal. They don't score the first goal, and we're talking about what we would have talked about with Vancouver. Oh, they were good in the beginning. They didn't get the goals. Portland killed the game. Portland sees it out. It's a tie. They're frustrated. So they needed a moment of brilliance from someone. It's taken them 9 weeks to get one, but they got it at the last moment when they needed it from Savarino. Last year it was Krylock doing things like that. They don't have him anymore, but all the things they did well in this game, they've done well in other games. They just had that first goal to sort of take that pressure off.
If I told you guys before the season that they would lose Rusnak, Krylock, Ochoa, all these guys were going to be gone, and they would be back in the playoffs on decision day, would you be like, oh yeah, that's for sure going to happen?
I would have told you they would. Like, I picked them 10th before the season started. I would have picked them 14th if you had told me that.
Right.
If you had told me like no Krylock all year long, the only DP they're going to sign is Jefferson Savarino. Ochoa's not going to play a single minute. I would have picked them dead last in the Western Conference.
Yeah,
did you guys
Rubio Rubin hadn't scored a goal all year until this last match, and on decision day it was a nice finish. But it's just when things get tight at the end of the year, this team seems to they stick around, they hang around, they fight, and I do think it was big for them to get a goal from Savarino as well too, because I think if they are going to go to Austin and make some noise, he's going to. I know there was no Diego Chara, which that was a huge miss for Portland, which we'll get to. But yeah, I mean, that little space where he can operate and find those soft spots right around that zone 14, top of the D, around that area, get into those soft spots in those pockets, he can be really dangerous.
But a reminder, by the way, what I was talking about, I'm pretty sure Jefferson Savarino didn't travel to Austin when they played them because they rested him that week. Not with an injury.
With the mind looking towards the playoffs.
Don't let them get used to him. Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah. By the way, Bodie Hidalgo has played 85 total MLS minutes to get a goal in this one. I think he's the first ever Utah-born homegrown to score for RSL. A bunch of guys from Arizona obviously doing so with that former academy facility down there. So really cool story as well. I will just say before we turn to Portland, there's a lot to talk about there. RSL, you sort of alluded to it, has been quietly one of the best stories in MLS this year of a market that had been sort of down in the dumps for a lot of really obvious reasons that we covered on the show, from ownership issues to coaching issues to, you name it. And they've sort of revived themselves in the soul of the club this year. So congratulations. Before it's even over, they still got an opportunity to make a run. Congratulations to everyone down there that put in so much work and effort and time to revive this thing. And I think there's a lot more to come. You mentioned it, Dave, like goals cost money. Let's see what that new ownership group does in the winter as well to reinforce this team. All right, let's talk Portland. They're out. No playoffs for them. It is good stat here from Mike Donovan. There's never been a year in which all three of the Whitecaps, Timbers, and Sounders played competitively. So there were years where one team wasn't playing competitively, but when all three missed the playoffs, that's from 1975 to 1982 and then 2001 to present. That's an incredible stat. That streak is now over. This was a bizarre one for the Timbers. I mean, Eric Williamson's a DNP, and he's available in a must-get something out of it game on the road. Diego Chara does not play, and you'd think if Diego Chara is not going to play, he's not there, per Ryan Clark of the Argonian, who quoted a Timber source. Chara was admitted and released from the hospital earlier last week with severe abdominal pain, having gastrointestinal issues. So he didn't even travel to Salt Lake. So you would just, I personally would just assume that Eric Williamson would then play. The quote from Gio Savarese, this week was more about him maybe not being at his best to contribute what I think a team needs from a player each week. Each practice is very important to make sure you've earned the possibility to play. Quote, nevertheless, we missed him.
Missed him? He was sitting right there.
Yeah.
You didn't.
I got to tell you, this is the type of move a coach makes when either he has like complete job security or when he has zero job security and he knows the end is coming, because Chara's your best player. He's not there. Blanco's your second best player. He can't go more than 15 minutes. Williamson's your third best player. And to say we're going to play without any of those guys, the first two, my hand was forced, but the third, no, I'm making that decision for disciplinary reasons when all you need is a draw on the road to get into the postseason. Yeah, either you have complete job security or you have no job security, and that you're going to be on the market soon because it's inexplicable. And we've seen it all year. They're levels above when Eric Williamson is on the field. And like David Ashala and Christian Paredes, they made that RSL midfield look like Real Madrid. Like these guys were in so far over their heads. And the one thing we saw, like the highlight of 2021 really for the Timbers was, the first part of the season when Chara wasn't available, Williamson was able to fill in and play some D-mid. He was able, and they had never, since 2011, literally since this team became an MLS club, they have never had an answer without Diego Chara on the field. And then out of nowhere last year, for about a month straight, Eric Williamson was playing at D-mid, and he was playing really, really well, got himself into the national team picture. Like he so obviously needed to be on that field. And, without him, with Paredes and Ashala out there, the Timbers just got overrun. So it looks like there's, obviously there's going to be a lot of changes in Portland this winter. Some of that is very obviously going to be personnel related in terms of the roster. But the biggest thing to take out of this, if you're a Timbers fan, is how terrifying a future potentially without Diego Chara or with a diminished version of Diego Chara, how terrifying that future is, because he papers over so many cracks for them. He stops so many fires before they even start. And what we saw yesterday is an example of what it's going to look like if he's not back to 100% next season.
They they had substitutions available, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the part that makes even less sense to me. Is
Gio made 4 subs, down 2-0. He went to Van Rankin and Marvin Loria off the bench left, and Blanco obviously came in later. But
yeah, because then you're looking down the bench
Williamson
and just being like, nah, like, yeah, and down 2-0 in a do or die, like, and that's the part to me where it's like, oh, I'm normally about the idea of it's hard to know what's going on behind the scenes, and the coach needs to have the trust to be able to make these decisions. But if you're gonna punish a guy, why even bring him?
Yeah,
why even dress him?
Why waste your game day roster spot on a guy? You are saying I will not play. How does that make any sense? Because if you were, as Kalen said, you have used him because you needed him. And to Doyle's point, you would have started him and just played all 3 of the center mids because it's Portland. They needed a tie. They don't care what the game looks like. They would have played like you need 2 guys to replace Diego Chara, and then Eric Williamson can do the things he can do on the field. And so it was bad. And it was a team that gave up on the game, right? Like that was clear from the way it played out that they gave up on what happened coming off the back of an MLS Cup run, which I think we could all say with Zuparic's age and Mabiala's age, Diego Chara, Blanco, that was probably the last gasp of that group. And whether they want to or not, it has to be different next year because I don't think the roster is good enough to last an MLS season.
Here's the other thing. If you're a Portland Timbers fan, you're looking over the San Jose Earthquakes and you're like, man, we had real issues with the number 9 position all year long.
Why would you want a guy who played
and
28
Jeremy
games and scored
Abobasi is sitting there
goals?
doing that,
Yeah.
and he could have been the future, the present, and the future of your club long term. And then you're looking at this game and you're like, all right, well, if Diego Chara's, I mean, look, we hope that the fountain of youth, that he's just like drinking from that thing all off season. Seems like he has every off season of all time. But like Eric Williamson would sort of seem like he's the future of your club in the midfield. Seems like a pretty good guy to build around. And like if you know, with the aging core that you have, like, you know, I get that there's things happening behind the scenes that we just do not know about, and I'm with you on that side, Kalen. But there's also sort of a long-term club building strategy side of it of like, okay, like we've got to manage this in the right way so that this is not a broken relationship on decision day with our playoff lives on the line as our roster ages and our club is in chaos.
Also, you throw all that out 2-0 down. You got to put him on the pitch. Man. Like, get out there. But,
to be clear, I went through the entire standings. There is not a team in MLS that wouldn't be better with Eric Williamson. I don't know what the price tag will look like to try and acquire him. And then that becomes the conversation, which is, yeah, we're better with him, but are we going to give up those resources at a position we're strong? But there are a lot of teams that would be a different team without them.
Cincy is the one that jumps to mind.
Interesting.
You put him with Noboto and Lucho in that central midfield.
I would be looking for teams that have sold players for a lot of allocation money recently because you need to find a team that's going to be able to afford that sort of price tag. How did Dallas do it with Areola? Well, they had a bunch of allocation laying around. So who might be those teams for Eric Williamson? I would think that if I was Portland, I would be at minimum starting people at the Areola number and seeing where it went from there.
Yep.
You're talking about a record.
Billy, bring him in. Replace Alejandro Bedoya with Eric Williamson on the side of that.
I mean, how about
Ali's another guy like Chara though. Like he's never going to age.
True.
What about if LAFC sells Sifu?
Yeah.
That's a good one. So
they have not been shy in league spending big time.
If I was Portland, I would absolutely not trade him to a Western Conference team. Absolutely not.
All right, let's Minnesota United in Vancouver. Yeah. Hey, yeah, we'll take it. Yeah, you don't like these young players? Yeah. Oh, sure. Just send them this way. We'll take those guys. Maybe say Kate Cal.
Him and Jackson Ewell next to each other.
Yeah, sell Kate Cal, and then that's where you get some allocation money. Just throwing it out there. Minnesota United 2, Vancouver Whitecaps 0. God love Vanni Sartini. He is our favorite, but it was too little, too late for the Vancouver Whitecaps. Minnesota United at home. Any big thoughts on this game? Fragapani and Jonathan Gonzalez with the goals. Jonathan, look, that trade paid off.
Acquisition.
Was it a trade? Yeah, loan.
Well,
did they have to trade for his rights? I mean, he's on loan from. I don't know. I don't remember how they acquired. I'm not going to lie to you. I forgot for a minute that he was actually in MLS.
We be taking Leagues Cup to the next level where now you can actually trade with Liga MX teams inside of.
Don't
MLS.
even get me started. This is not even the final frontier. It's just the next frontier. We've got an open trade market, baby. Brian White PK call. Anybody think that was for sure a PK?
I did. when I watched it and watching the game.
I did too when I was watching the game. On IR, we had slightly different takes. Christina Uncle joined us for that one, Charlie and I. So go check that out on the MLS YouTube page. I think there is an element of there's a good possibility that it's less obvious than it felt in real time. There's also a good possibility that's a penalty.
That it's less obvious.
Yeah. That's what we call weasel words, I think. Right?
We'll talk more about Minnesota United on Thursday. Sorry, Loons fans, but you're going to the playoffs. Congratulations, got it done at home. All right, playoffs first look, and we'll get out of here. Remember the bracket challenge, Audi bracket challenge. Go fill that out at MLSsoccer.com and the MLS app. Who is the most likely away team that can make a run? Away team in the first round. Some might call it an unseeded team, even though they're technically seeded, but it would be a seed that's 5 through 7. Dave, just to explain it in case you might have trouble grasping what that might be.
This may come as little surprise to the group. But I'm going with Nashville, which I'm glad you didn't wear your Galaxy Shrine or it's off.
I don't think I have a Nashville kit, but I do have my Hani Mukhtar signed goal calls record.
Ooh. Oh, that's nice.
So, yeah.
Nice. I mean, Hani would be a big reason for that. I think he's going to win the MLS MVP Golden Boot. He was on my Golden Boot team as well, so I should get a piece of that trophy. I mean, he was ridiculous this season. I think 44. I saw a stat: 44% of the goals Nashville scored, which is pretty high. But then also, I like this team the way they are road tested. If you remember back to the beginning of the season, they went on an 8-game road trip throughout the league, and for the most part, it wasn't like they came back in a good spot. It wasn't lights out. But what I saw from there was the ability, one, just to be on the road for a passage of time. Like this will feel like a nice little siesta going through the Western Conference playoffs. But I think they showed enough that the way they play, they should be able to withstand that. 14 saves from Joe Willis, as Matt mentioned earlier, was huge. Walker Zimmerman, for me, I think it's going to be, I think he's still. I would say Alexander Collins and him as center backs and Glesnes are, the top 3 for me in the center back position.
Quick note on Glesnes. He was the only non-goalkeeper to play all 3,060 minutes this year in Major League Soccer.
Wow. So, but, Nashville also, they have 50 points, 26 of them come on the road. So they're actually better on the road than they were at home this season. So the idea that they're not going to be able to, that they're going to miss out on some huge home field advantage just didn't really bear fruit. And so I think, looking towards that second match, yes, I know it was, a little bit of a different situation, but they just went to LA and got 3 points. So the fact that they can do that, I think LA Galaxy, for me, still big questions in the back. I am a little bit in this making this prediction, a little bit of scared of Puig because that man is feeling it right now. That little flick back from Chicharito and then through ball outside of the foot. I would say Chicharito and Gonzalo Higuain were the best number 9 straight ups, but I still think Hani for me is the guy to watch because even when I was going through my list of guys that this time of year I went through some unheralded guys of Derek Etienne Jr. or Dairon, right, who also did sneak one manage on
of course
but Hani Mukhtar is right at the top of that list for me, and he doesn't have a ton of experience, but I would say in the years he's been there, he's got 4 playoff goals in 5 matches.
Yep.
So in those big moments that matter, he did it. He scored against Philly in the playoffs, the one that they lost in penalties. But I still think that in those big moments that matter, he continues to find it. It's not like he has to find another gear in the playoffs. He can just really click back into the form that he's had the last couple of years as well. So that'd be my case for Nashville.
On my bracket challenge, I went max chaos last night because I said I was going to be last in the video, so I didn't want to. I wanted to try to make a bracket that wouldn't have been replicated. So it's both serious and not serious. I had the Galaxy going to Montreal. Is it possible that the Galaxy could make a run in these playoffs, or is that just stupid and ridiculous, Doyle?
So I picked Nashville to make it all the way to MLS Cup. I think it'll be Nashville, Philly, and MLS Cup, and I think Philly's going to win. But I wrote in
Kalen's
I had the same thing.
Yeah. Stole Kalen's pick.
I wrote in my tiers piece, which we just published, that Nashville's the perfect sort of dark horse because they're compact, they don't make mistakes, they defend in the box really well, and in Teal Bunbury they have a hot striker who's had a couple of nice playoff runs before, and in Hani Mukhtar they'll have the guy who's the best player on the field every time he takes a field. Except that might not be true against the Galaxy. The one team it might not be true against is the LA Galaxy because Puig has been so good. So no, I don't think it's crazy, Weeby. I think like Puig is so good and Chicharito's movement is so relentless and so good that even against teams that play really deep, he's always creating space. He's always creating opportunities. And the Galaxy, between Puig and Delgado and Brugman, they could really dominate in midfield now. They are still leakier than I would expect from a real MLS Cup contender. They still have the ability to miss chances that make you just want to throw yourself off a bridge. But they play really good soccer, and on any given day, they might have the two best players on the field, and that includes against Nashville and the MVP Hani Mukhtar. So no, I don't think you're absolutely crazy. I wouldn't pick it, but it's not out of the question.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm saying there's a chance.
Dynamo got their first goal, the opener against the Galaxy, by pressing Puig in a higher up position. They get him to turn over the ball in a bad spot and end up getting it to Ferreira. But I think it'll be a big task for Sean Davis and Dax to really make it difficult, or Godoy, or a whole battalion of them to really make it difficult on Puig and not let him get comfortable. But he's so quick, he's so technical, and his movement is so good that it is very difficult to track.
So my dark horse out of the West, which I don't know if it counts because they might be too high a seed, is Dallas. They've given up more than one goal one time since July 4th. And while goal scoring has been an issue, they haven't had Velasco for 6 weeks. They didn't have Sebastian Lletget most of the year. And they've had Paul Arriola got suspended and has been a bit in and out with international duty. The young guys have also gone on the road, right? Paxton Pomykal, Jesus Ferreira. We've already seen them play fearless on the road in playoff games in Portland in 2020, in Seattle in 2019. So I think they have a lot of the pieces put together to make a playoff run. I worry about Minnesota at home more than Austin or one of the LA teams away for FC Dallas in terms of like setting the tone, because I think it's a little tougher in terms of expectations, but Jesus Ferreira should rip that back line apart and should pull those center backs all over the place. And Arriola and Velasco should be able to come in and get goals in that game. So I really like the way Dallas is set up. I don't know that there's a ton of expectation, but in saying that, that means Jesus Ferreira, a young player, has to be the MVP to go on an MLS Cup run. Yeah. And I don't know if he can do that.
It's a year early. It feels Probably. Like it's a year too soon for Dallas. I don't know.
But Hedges may not be there next year, or may not be at this level. So this might be their shot with him.
Yeah.
Yep. I love that in the pre-show meeting, we had a long conversation about how to best define dark horse, and then we clarified that as well, and then Dave went for a 3 seed.
Well, you went for a 4 seed.
No, I didn't say a 4 seed. I just said does LA. I just said does LA.
Okay, so LA. I responded.
Okay.
He was just asking questions, David. He was just asking questions.
I was just asking questions.
Sure.
I think we established that Cincinnati in the East is our 5 through 7 sort of dark horse, right?
But they are the complete opposite of what a dark horse playoff team should be. Because defensively, they're so loose. They give you spaces to operate in between the center backs and in the midfield. You could overload the flank. Like, look at DC overloading the flanks against Cincinnati in that game yesterday. DC looked incredible anytime they were able to get up their right side. Like, it's not how it should work in the playoffs. You can't outscore teams. But those 3 guys are so good, they might just do it anyway. It's absurd. It's absurd to watch the Cincinnati team all year long.
Look, we have some deeper conversations.
To be clear, I said Inter Miami. So just throwing that out there.
It's the same thing. Everything that I just said about Cincinnati applies to Inter Miami as well, except the three guys are Higuain, Pozuelo, and maybe Campana if he can get healthy.
We'll end it here because we've been going on for a long time now. We have another show on Thursday, and I believe we'll have Diego Fagundes on that show, Austin fans. So look forward to that as well. Thomas, again, asked about the break for the first-round bye teams. That's LAFC and Philadelphia. Both will, of course, wait till Thursday. We found out with confirmation from both Dave and Anders. Thank you for reading. Is having a first-round bye a good thing considering a 2-week break? If we have another Revs early exit situation this year, should they consider doing 8 teams per conference in the playoffs and do full first-round matches for everyone?
Yes.
It's not as long this year, which is great.
And I don't think Philly's mad about it if they can get Bedoya back.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, Bedoya played 15 minutes yesterday, so
yeah,
I
great.
think
So
he'd be
give
good to
him
go.
Right, but now you get, and it's what, 8 days?
No.
Sorry,
It's
Sunday.
It's Sunday, and then 7 more.
Yeah.
And
It's 10 days, but for me, it's more about the fact that a team has already played in a do or die situation and survived. And what you get when you come off that is invaluable.
But isn't that always going to be the case? Let's say it was 8 teams, right? Philly would have come off annihilating TFC when they brought 0 starters in a game that didn't matter versus a team getting into the playoffs.
Right. But the thing is more that it's the turnaround. So when I've had to play in those first week games, you get that little bounce of like that you play do or die and then you go. But at a certain point, you're like it's the end of the season, and the fact that you have to play more matches, it adds up as you move later into the playoffs. Whereas I think if those top seeds can get past that first round, then I feel like they have a great chance to go on and win the whole thing. But it's that first round where you're really trying to. We saw it with New England last year. We've seen it with a bunch of teams in the past that it's really difficult to get that rhythm and to have that kind of playoff sweat built up if you just haven't been in that mode yet. And other teams in the past, when it was so long, I think New England had played the fire, right, in the friendly to try to just account for that time off. But there's no way you can account for that when you're playing an NYCFC team that just came out of the first round and like was in a dogfight at Yankee Stadium and then comes up to play you. So I think. I don't know the perfect solution, but I think
it's just 8. It's 8 and 8. Perfect. The solution is 8 and 8. It's not like,
I mean, St. Louis coming in next year, and you assume more expansion, and you'll have teams, and it'll sort of be a 50-50 as far as in and out at some point.
And the good thing though is that it's 10 days instead of like 2-3 weeks with no international break and all that. The way that came through last year was really difficult.
I think it's going to be fine this year. I'm just throwing that out there.
Right. So you're picking chalk. You're saying it's going to be LAFC versus Philadelphia.
No, I'm just saying
you think it's going to be fine, Dave.
No, I'm saying in that round.
Put your money where your mouth is. Are you picking LAFC to advance
reveal your Audi playoff bracket right now?
No, I'm not picking LAFC to go to MLS.
What was your Audi playoff bracket final? Have you done that?
I'm recording it at 2:10 Eastern time after we're done.
Wow.
Kick it down the line, huh?
Yeah. I'm sure Rich really appreciates that.
All right, we're going to get out of here. Big thanks to everybody who tweeted at me with topics for today. Big thanks to you guys. Thank you to Anders, as always. Decision day in the books. 2022 regular season is over. That means we turn the page to the postseason. 2022 Audi MLS Cup Playoffs. They start on Saturday. You have first round games Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and then off we go to MLS Cup and then into the World Cup, and it won't slow down through the end of the year. It's going to be wonderful.
Oh, you're going to bring back the trombone, noon Eastern time, Saturday at RBA?
Cornet, David. Cornet.
The cornet! Oh.
Trombone's a little bit harder to get on the path, take the whole way. Okay. That thing's pretty long.
Well, Doyle was taking
tough in the stands.
The bus out of Port Authority.
That's true. Way back
in hitting people in the back of the head. Anyway, some fun times ahead. Thank you for rocking with us all year long. It doesn't stop now. Playoffs are coming. We'll see you on Thursday, everybody. Adios. Congratulations, you made it through more than an hour of extra time. That means you love the show, and if you love the show, you probably want more episodes. Click right here for more episodes of Extra Time, and here to subscribe to the MLS YouTube channel. Thanks for following along.